I was told that my son was not born a boy, he was assigned a gender at birth.
I don't even know how you handle it. You're visibly heartbroken.
You have no idea, dude. I never wanted this for my son. There's definitely a war on the fathers. They're scaring the parents to think that if you don't go along with this, your child is going to kill themselves. I was told by a queer pastor that it's time for me to have a funeral for my son and start accepting my daughter. This system is not meant for fathers. It's a revolving money door when it comes to the family court system. Whether I see that little boy ever again, it's difficult, but I just don't want him to go through the surgery or the puberty blockers. Because then at that point, I've lost him for good. Our healthcare system is broken. That's all this is about, is money. I didn't have a daughter, I had a son.
Tonight on The Chair, we're joined by Adam Vena, a dedicated father who's been battling the legal system in the state of California to gain custody of his only son. Thank you, Adam, for joining us. Now, for the audience members who are not familiar with your story, if you can take us back to 4 years ago when you first started dealing with this issue. Tell us about how it started, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. This all started when Aiden was 2 years old. I received a picture of Aiden in a pink dress. And I was at work when I received the picture. I waited till I got home. I went over to my parents' house and I talked to my father and I showed him a picture. And I told my father, I said, how could she do this to my son? And it really, really pissed me off. And I sent out some text messages to her saying he's a boy. Basically, he's a boy, not a girl. Stop dressing him in girls' clothes. And I had thought it had stopped. And on Aiden's third birthday, we were separated at the time, and I had him on the day after his birthday. So everything I have done for my son has always been trying to limit the damage and stay out of the system, stay out of the family court system. So I agreed to have him on the day after his birthday. So I had set up a great birthday. I invited my friend over. He's got two boys that Aiden got along with. We went to a jumping jamming place, and then we came back for cake and ice cream. He goes to the restroom. He comes back and says, Daddy, I need help washing my hands. I said, all right. We washed his hands, and as we were drying his hands, we were leaving the restroom, and that's when he said that Mom had bought him a pink dress. And the way I'm going to tell you and the way I'm going to tell your followers is exactly the way I told Aiden. I got down on one knee, and I looked that little boy in the eye. I said, hey, buddy, you're a boy, not a girl, and boys don't wear dresses. And he looked at me and said, okay, Daddy. And we walked off and had cake and ice cream. And that was the end of the conversation. So the way I told you guys is exactly the way I told Aiden. And a couple days later, I was upset. I was angry. And I sent out a bunch of text messages to his mother. And in none of those text messages were there any threats of violence, nothing to the point where it needed to get to the point where it got. And in those text messages, I basically said, he's a boy, not a girl. Stop dressing my son in girls' clothes. And there was some bad words in those text messages, but nothing that I'm going to come beat you up or anything like that. And she was able to retain a temporary restraining order on me. So June 26th, 4 years ago, was the last time I physically held Aiden. And I was on a temporary restraining order for 2.5 years. And now the court system has put me on a 5-year restraining order.
Now, let's go back in time. When the mother of Aiden first texted you a picture of him in a pink dress.
Mhm.
At this time, you guys were separated or were you living together?
We were separated. I was still going over to the house, just to spend time with Aiden, spend time with her, just to hang out, kind of like a family, but I would leave the house, at night, and I would come home, and then I would go to work. Um,
So your relationship with his mother was all right. You guys just had decided things aren't working out for you, so you've separated, but you were going to co-parent.
yes, I was definitely trying to co-parent. At that time, I was doing everything. I have never been in the system before, and I've definitely never been in the family court system before. So everything I did was trying to stay out of the system, stay away from the system. So, come to Christmas time, I would have loved to have had him on Christmas Day, but I negotiated with her to have him on Christmas Eve and she would have him on Christmas Day. Everything I was trying to do was to minimize having to go into court.
And at this point, when you're doing these negotiations, going through who's going to spend Christmas with Aiden and whether it's Christmas Eve or Christmas morning, how old is he at the time?
Aiden at the time is like 2.5, 3 years old. So we separated right when he was 2 years, about 2.5 years old.
So while you were living with Aiden's mom, was there ever any inclination of that, any discussions as far as, yeah, I think, kids who decide to wear dresses, boys decide to wear dresses, or girls decide to wear boys' clothing, that she was accepting of that fact, or was there?
That never, ever came up in any of our conversations. Though I had to, I was worried about a lot of things. I was a first time father. And I had a million things running through my head. I suffer from ADHD and severe learning disabilities. So those are the two things that I had on my mind when it came to Aiden. Him dressing as a girl or wanting to be a girl never crossed my mind that this is something that she would do to him or this is something that he would want it. I always asked the grandparents or my parents, did I miss something in Aiden that he wanted to be this way? And every time I asked them, because I still ask him to this day, if I missed anything, there was nothing that indicated that Aiden wanted to be a girl. He was a normal little boy. He wanted to do the normal little boy things. I mean, I used to draw treasure maps when he would come over to my house on the weekends, and I would burn the edges of this map, and I would be like, "Hey, dude, I found a treasure map." I got a treasure box. I would bury the box somewhere in the backyard, and then we would have to find the treasure. And I would have Hot Wheel cars in there, that kind of stuff. And he he really loved doing that kind of stuff with me.
Which, what every normal father and son do.
I was I was a new father. I was trying to find ways to 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 be with my son, you know? I just was going off the cuff. There was no that we as parents, there's no manual to being a parent. There's no manual to being a father. So I was just doing the first thing. When I would build those maps, it was fun for me, to build those maps, to burn the edges, to make it look old, wrinkle it all up, and he was he was really excited anytime he came over to my house because we would always do something different. We never sat in front of the TV. I always had something planned either for the Saturday that I would have him or if I had him on the weekend. We were always doing something outside.
So it sounds like you had minimal custody of him even before all of this went into the court system.
Yes,
Because typically 7 out of 10 times the mom gets primary custody of the child. In fewer cases, you'll get 50-50 custody.
correct.
So it sounds like you had minimal custody of him. But what led you to the point where she ended up filing a restraining order against you? It was right after the text messages, or
That was it.
what other actions took place after that?
There was so one of the things I know I really don't ever talk about, but I was over there one day And it was the summertime, and I stopped at Target to buy balloons. And they made these water balloons that you didn't have to worry about tying. You just filled them up, and the little rubber band would slide off, and you'd have a bunch of rubber bands. And we were playing, and we were throwing water balloons. I threw a water balloon at the her other child, and he started crying. Now, for me, it was not, did not throw the water balloon hard. I just lobbed it over there, and it started an argument where I was not, I guess, loving enough because he was crying. Um, and that started a huge fight. Um, to the point where I got hit, where she punched me in the back of the head. Um, and I felt at the time that I could not leave because I was afraid that she was going to say that I was the abuser in it. So I was the one that called the police department on her, and she was arrested. I didn't press any charges against her, but she was arrested for domestic violence on me after being punched in the back of the head.
Is that what led to her filing a restraining order against
No,
you?
what
or-
led to filing the restraining order against me was the text messages to her. That's what led to the temporary restraining order.
So then the water balloon incident took place before she started dressing Aiden as a girl.
Correct. That I know of. So she did it one time before when he was 2, but I don't know what happened in between any of that. If she was continually doing it, she must have been continually doing it, but not me knowing about it until he told me on his 3rd birthday.
How did the restraining order affect your custody?
Oh, I was stripped of everything. They stripped me of my parental rights. They stripped me of my father's rights. They stripped the grandparents of everything for no violence to her. No physical violence to her at all.
And this is all just from the text messages of you.
This is all from the text messages.
Reaffirming that your son is a boy, not a girl.
Correct. And I knew as soon as it got to that point that I was screwed, because I knew that no one was going to. This whole case has been very one-sided. I've always asked in court and in front of the juror, and not in jurors, but in front of the judge, that if you guys would have sat me down in this courtroom as the father to ask me what I think is going on with Aiden, you would have a completely different father on your hand. But because this has been one-sided from the very beginning, you took her side. Everyone has taken her side. The schools, the attorneys, my previous attorney took her side. Everyone has taken her side. No one has sat me down to ask me what I think is going on with my son. And then we go back to, Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, when the judge ordered a gender assessment to be done on Aiden when he was 4. I requested to sit in on this assessment, and that was denied. I went as far as hiring my own therapist to sit in, not to sway left or right, but just to see how they were going to treat Aiden in this assessment, and that was denied. I also asked for a phone call from the doctor to give my side of the story, and that was denied. So from this point on, the doctor at Children's Hospital has never contacted the father to find out what was really going on with Aiden.
And at the Children's Hospital, they were doing what
To be honest with you, brother, I do not know. Anytime I would call Children's Hospital to find out what steps they took and how they got to A, B, and C with Aiden, they always referred me to the website. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I said, all right, I'll go to the website. There was nothing on the website that showed me or told me how the assessment would go down. This assessment was 60 minutes at Children's Hospital. Aiden talked 5 minutes, and she talked the rest of the time.
She, as in Aiden's mother.
Aiden's mother.
How old was he at the time when
Aiden was 4?
He was 4 when the assessment took place.
Yeah.
Did they ever provide you a copy of the assessment?
They provided me the assessment, but I had to sit in the courtroom under the watchful eye of the court-appointed employees and the sheriff's deputies, and to allow me to read that assessment. And I told the judge in court, I said, Your Honor, I I read at a very, very low level. I need to take this assessment at home with me and be able to read it on my own time. I need to be able to read it at my speed. I said, we're going to end up sitting here for 5, 8, 9 hours for me to read this assessment and to try to understand it. They would not allow me to take the assessment home with me to read it.
Now, it seems like, I mean, from what you've been dealing with, I'm curious as to where you stand. Do you believe that the legal system is stacked against fathers in custody cases?
I I do. I think the system is really stacked against fathers. I know there's a lot of mothers out there that have been wrongfully done by the family court system, but from what I've learned over the last couple of years, the family court system is really, really against fathers, and it it seems to be very, very one sided. On a lot of these cases, like mine, the mother normally gets the the amount of custody, especially if the father is not gender affirming.
Overall, do you think the legal system is stacked against fathers in any even divorce custody battles?
I do.
You do.
Yeah, I really do. There's definitely a war on the fathers.
Because there was an article written by Assigned Media. I believe this was back in March, where she claimed the mother of your son, Aiden, claimed that there was a lot of domestic abuse at home where you were physically abusive towards her. Are there any truth to those claims?
No
Or
truth. My attorney, the last time we were in court, my attorney got her to admit there has never been any physical abuse to her. Anytime that me and her got into an argument, we got into a fight, but I always left the house, got into my truck, and walked away from the fight.
are there not any laws against? I mean, there has to be some basis as far as, okay, the reason why you lose your rights as a father to your son is because of A, B, and C.
So the only way that a parent or parents can lose custody of their child is if there's physical abuse or neglect. In my case, there's never been physical abuse or neglect to Aiden, and there's never been physical abuse to her.
So then what was their basis
Gender
for?
affirming.
Is that
Yes, sir.
just because you did not affirm his so quote unquote claim to transitioning his gender to a girl? That's how you ended up losing your custody.
Yep. I've got proof of it because I was on the phone with the opposing counsel, and me and her were going back and forth, and my father said, he said, he said, stop raising my grandson as a girl, and they stripped them of custody because they were not gender affirming. Aiden,
Now there's 13 states that are transgender sanctuary states.
transgender sanctuary states.
Correct.
Yeah, there's 13 right
13
now.
of them.
Yeah.
So do you think this would have been any different if you were not in a sanctuary state?
I th- I think I would be able to hold my son if I was in another state and this was going on. I don't think it would have gotten to this point. I think we're at this point is because of the state that we're living in right now.
Now, the mother of your son also, as you mentioned earlier with the water balloon incident, she has another son, an older son from a different father, correct?
Correct.
Do you think there was any type of, whether it's jealousy or whether it's some type of spite against you being a better father towards Aiden versus her other son's father, maybe not being present in his life, causing that type of um, stress or being the reason why she decided, okay, maybe what I need to do is the only way I could cause harm to Adam is by convincing Aiden that he's not a little boy, he's a girl.
Well, I don't think I treated both those boys as if they were my own. I never treated them different. The only way I would treat them different is because Aiden was younger. Um, but I don't think she was 100%, and I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. I don't think she was 100% on board with this transition. I think she was brainwashed by the judges, the queer therapists, the attorneys to make her be on full on board with this because she never referred to my son as my daughter in court until this new attorney that is involved now got involved. So I really feel that she has been brainwashed to go 100% on board with this.
New attorney meaning her attorney or your
Her
her
attorney.
attorney?
Yeah,
But during the case, the original judge who was handling the case had recused himself, correct?
he did. Yes.
What was the reason for that?
We don't know. I did a podcast talking about the AFCC. The AFCC is an organization of activist judges and attorneys in the family court. And we did a podcast, a deep dive into the AFCC. And the next court case, he recused himself without cause. So there had to have been something in that podcast that I did about him and the AFCC that made him recuse himself because my new attorney now has asked numerous of other attorneys about this, and they've never heard of a judge recusing himself after 3 years in a case.
The judge was working on the case for 3 years
Yes.
prior to him recusing himself. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Without cause. So there had to have been something in that like I said, in that podcast that made him remove himself from the case. He was also on the board of directors of the AFCC. And then so happens he kicks my case over to another activist judge who was the president of the AFCC.
How has the new judge been as far as handling the case? Is he still biased?
He's very, very, very biased. Me and one other father have the same exact judge. And this judge has now stripped his father of complete custody of his 11-year-old son and has given the mother full reign to basically chemically castrate their 11-year-old son.
What I truly find hard to believe is that I like to think that our judicial system here in the United States is better than most around the world. But then when you hear about such cases, a judge is supposed to apply the law and, in a sense, even interpret the law, right? That's the oath that they take, is to be able to apply the law for the public so that the public can have a fair justice system. But in your case and the other gentleman, the other father's case that you mentioned, with the 11-year-old child, who the judge has allowed for the mother to castrate, chemically castrate. I mean, do you think there's some type of political pawn going on here and you happen to be fallen victim to it? Or what do you think is happening here?
I think the judge that I have now, he's definitely an activist judge. If you go onto their website, they have the LGBTQ plus flag all over it. We filed a 170.6 against this judge to remove him, and he denied us the 170.6. We're allowed one application to remove a judge for biasness or conflict of interest, and this judge definitely has a conflict of interest, and he's not ruling, like you said, on evidence and facts. He's ruling on emotions and feelings, and you cannot rule on emotions and a feeling, especially when it comes to a case like this. And that's how this from the first judge up to the second judge, it's all been feelings and emotions. No facts, no evidence. Because if you look at the facts and the evidence in this case, I should have never been removed from my son's life. Never removed.
So when you file a 170.6 against the presiding judge, that same judge is the one who makes the decision to allow or disallow that.
I believe so. I believe he's allowed to. We can file the motion, the 170.6, and he can remove himself, or he can stay in. And he decided to stay in. We filed two of them against this judge.
That defeats the purpose of the whole motion.
Yeah. Yep.
Why would any judge voluntarily decide, yes, I think I'm going to remove myself from
Well,
this
again, it's like
case?
you said, they need to. You can't rule on. You can't be biased, or you can't be in favor of something. And he seems to be very much in favor of what they're doing to this child, what they're doing to the other child. Um, and I don't know if he has money involved in this. I don't know if he's financially paid to rule on these cases. But again, my case is very, very new. There's not a lot of case studies with this type of case. So this is very, very new when it comes to law. But he has definitely ruled um, in not a favorable way for me.
Earlier today, I was reading the 2024 report on the experiences of parents of transgender and non binary children. And in that report, it states that typically a child at the age of 2 fully understands whether they're a boy or a girl. Now, we've all had, as kids, we thought we could fly, we thought we're
Sure.
Superman, we thought we're a dinosaur. I have 2 young boys myself.
But I don't think at 2 years old you knew the difference between a boy and a girl. I don't think a 2-year-old knows the difference between male genitalias and female genitalias at 2 years old. And if they do know that, then there's something else going on that needs to be addressed. Because that was not at 2 years old, I was not being told the difference, you know.
I'm just trying to understand, as far as for a 2, 3, or 4-year-old to decide, yes, I'm going to start dressing like a girl, and for the parent to be like, all right, perfect. We're going to take him to a doctor. We're going to see what's the quickest way to medically transition our child into the opposite gender. How does that conversation even come up?
Brother, I have no idea, to be honest, because I've been completely cut out of any negotiations of anything in regards to this. All they know is that I don't want my son in girls' clothes, and all the medical decisions have been made by her and the attorney. So I don't know the answers to any of those questions because I have been cut out of all medical decisions. I mean, they gave him the COVID vaccine. At 4 years old, my son had to get the COVID vaccine. I had to sit there and look at my son on a FaceTime call and him crying on the phone, telling me I don't want to get the vaccine or I don't want to get the shot. And then those people text me or email me because I asked them how he did, and they go, "Oh, he did great." You guys physically forced a vaccine on a 4-year-old boy that didn't need to get it, and yet you're making me, the father, look like the monster because I'm the one that did not want my son to get it. But you guys forced the vaccine on my son. Everything has been forced on my son. Everything has been forced on. He has been groomed to be this way. For the last 4 years, all my son knows is that he's a girl. He goes by the name of Luna, and he's got she, her pronouns at 4 years old. Now at 6.
When is the last time you've physically seen or held your son?
I haven't physically held Aiden since his third birthday.
So, over 3.5 years ago.
Yep.
I,
I'm
I,
still sitting on Christmas gifts from 4 years ago. The attorney said it's not our priority for his Christmas gifts.
I mean, as a father, I can't even imagine what you're going through.
They wouldn't even allow his grandparents to give him his Christmas gift.
How do they? I mean, so your parents are also on a restraining order to not be able to see him, or
No, because they're not gender affirming. They've done nothing. I thought I was numb to this, but I guess I'm not.
how do you become numb to this? You know, every morning, even though I have an alarm set, my boys are the ones who come in at sunrise, wake me up. Sometimes I've had a long night, didn't sleep till 3 a.m. and there's nothing better than waking up to them, annoying you or
I still sleep with my son's comforter.
I mean, you're obviously, I don't even know how you handle it. You're you're visibly heartbroken
You have no idea, dude.
because they've taken all, the purpose away from you. Your son was your purpose as a father. Once you become a father, they are your purpose. They're your purpose in life. And now your purpose has become to fight the state of California, the legal system, when you should be pitching a ball to your son,
Yep.
playing baseball with him, teaching him how to ride a bike.
Yep.
All the money you're even spending in the legal system, your attorneys and everything, that could be going towards, his future college tuition or extracurricular activities and all that.
I pay $1,400 a month in child support to a son I don't even get to see anymore.
So they're okay taking your money every single month.
And if I miss a payment, I will go to jail.
I don't know how that's a fair system.
It happens to fathers all the time. They bankrupt the fathers. They put them on the street. You miss one payment. And I don't know if it's one payment, but if you miss a payment, you get put legal actions upon you. And they could put you in jail. This system is not meant for fathers. It's a revolving money door when it comes to the family court system. There's no money to be made with the safe parent. There's only money to be made with the unsafe parent. Because with the safe parent, if they put Aiden with me, I'm the safe parent. That's it. Court's over. No one's making money. But the unsafe parent, the revolving door of the family court system is always revolving. Everybody is making money. The judge is making money. The deputies are making money. The attorneys are making money. There's never an end to the family court system. If I hear the word continuous one more time, I'm done. Because that's just one more way to keep the system going. Everyone's got to get paid. Everybody has to get paid. There's no attorneys out there for fathers, pro bono attorneys. The mother can get free pro bono legal work all she wants. I don't think she's paid a dime for legal fees because she's got these attorneys that will, she's got an attorney with she, her pronouns. Where do you think she stands in this situation? The attorney's got her own pronouns. So she's pro bono. So she's not spending money. I'm having to fork out my own money, and then I'm having to fundraise to pay for my legal fees. Because no father has $60,000 retainer sitting in their backyard or a money tree to have to pay for a family law attorney. Plus $150, $200 per email, $500 for phone calls. After the retainer's blown, you can blow through a retainer in 2 months. 50 grand. Who's got 50 grand lying around? And in my case is different. Imagine a regular custody case for a father. You know, it's just a revolving money door, the family court system.
And I think it even goes beyond that because if you calculate, for instance, a child going through the full-on transition procedures, right? Then they become a patient of the system for the rest of their lives because they cannot live a normal life.
Nope.
They're always going to have mental issues as far as did I make the right choice? Did I not? Why am I different? Why am I not different? Plus, the surgical procedures are all require maintenance, and that maintenance is very expensive. So now you become a patient of the system for the rest of your life.
Rest of your life. And then if you detransition, you have no help.
So this thing ends up making the system anywhere it could make $1 million
$5 million per child.
for life. That's lifelong.
That's from what I understand, it's almost $5 million per child for the transitions and everything like that. I mean, because Lupron is $43,000. The insurance company charges $43,000 for Lupron, and Lupron is the medication that they give to pedophiles in jail
To chemically castrate.
to chemically castrate. So we're giving Lupron to children under the age of 18. There's another drug out there that's $100,000. That's another puberty blocker that they give to children. The insurance company charges $100,000 for this medication.
Now, isn't the puberty blocker supposed to be given, say, right before they're about to go through
12.
puberty, right?
12 years old. So I think we hit puberty, boys hit puberty around 13, 14 years old. So you got to get them before they start their puberty.
I mean, do you think this is some type of fad that we're going through?
I mean, you look at Megan Fox. Megan Fox has got 4 boys, and they're all transgender. You can't tell me that all 4 of those boys have gender dysphoria without it being. I mean, it looks like it's a fad. You know, we all struggled being popular in school. You know what I'm saying? So I think what we're seeing is kids trying to be popular in school, and we're seeing this uptick in the last 4 years.
Well, it's not just Megan Fox. I mean, you've got Alicia Silverstone, Angelina Jolie, Kate Hudson, Adele, Charlize Theron, Will Smith, right? You've got athletes like Dwayne Wade.
Magic Johnson, I think.
Well, Magic Johnson's son, who identifies as a girl, is I think probably close to 30 now. You know, once you're an adult,
Right.
do whatever you please, but to brainwash children thinking that you're not the gender that you were biologically born as, what's the definition of child abuse if that's not?
Well, don't say child abuse in court because then you get in trouble for it. But I think what they're doing to these children and what they're doing to my son is 100% child abuse. It's physical and emotional abuse. Just because they're not smacking the kid, what they're doing is physical and emotional abuse to make them think that there's something that they were born not as. I was told that my son was not born a boy. He was assigned a gender at birth.
Told by who?
The attorney.
Her attorney?
Mm-hmm. And I said, no, ma'am, he was not. God made him a boy. He was not assigned a gender at birth. And then that started another argument with her.
Yet she identifies as a she, her.
Mm-hmm.
The attorney does?
Yep. And I identify as a pissed off father. And that's what I told her. I want her to identify me as in court.
Do they even refer to a father as a father, or is there a new name for it?
Well, they refer to mothers as just the birthing person now. So
Exactly.
fathers ain't not. I mean, we're just we're just a paycheck. You know, I never wanted this for my son. I come from my parents are still married, almost 50 years they've been married. Um, and I never wanted it to end this way. I never pictured myself in this shoe. You know, I wanted us all to be together. I wanted to be a stepdad. I wanted to be a real dad. I wanted us to be a family of four. How I was raised by my parents.
Does Aiden's mom come from a broken family, or
She does. She does. She's got some. She's got some issues, um, and it was very relevant when once we got together. She did not like um, the close relationship I had with my mom. She hated the relationship I had with my mom. She always told me, "Why can't you love me as much as you love your mother?" And I always would tell her, "I love you, but there's two different types of love. There's the love for your mother, and there's a love for your partner, and those are two different types of love."
and she couldn't understand the
No,
difference?
no, she hated it. She hated the relationship that me and my dad had. She hated the relationship that me and my brother had, and this has drove a wedge between my family. We're not as close as we used to be. Um, I can see the real, especially right now during Christmas time. You know, my mom not having her grandson around for Christmas. We have nothing in the house. I had to move back home. There's nothing in the house that reminds us of Aiden in the house. All the pictures are down. I took everything out of the room that reminded me of Aiden. There's no bed. There's no clothes. The only thing that's in that house is his comforter that I have is his. But you would never know I was a father. You would never know that my parents were grandma and grandpa.
Aiden is the only grandchild your parents have?
No, they have two other ones. So they have my brother's son is 3, and they just have a 1-year-old daughter now. So it's helped. You know, she spends as much time with those kids as possible. So, but it's hard for me to hang out with them. You know,
What's causing that rift between you and your parents? Are
I don't
they
think there's a real riff between. It's just a sense of loss in the family. It's almost like my mom said a year ago. It's almost like Aiden died. You know, that's how it feels. I was told I was told by a queer pastor that it's time for me to have a funeral for my son and start accepting my daughter.
a pastor said this to you?
Yep.
A supposed man of God said
A
that to you?
woman. She's a woman
She's a
pastor.
woman.
I don't know if that's possible, but yeah. She DM'd me and said it's time for me to have a funeral for my son.
How did that make you feel?
That was hot. Because he's not dead. He's just being abused. There's so much damage that's been done to that little boy that should never have been done. And maybe it was my fault, but I've tried. I might not have been a perfect partner, but I was a damn good fucking father. Excuse my language. They didn't give me time to be a real father.
I mean, in situations like this, parents, I've seen parents over the years where, let's say, their children become, get into drugs or gangs, and they're constantly in and out of jail. And sometimes when you look at them and you wonder, would these parents rather, I can't even say it, but their children to have been dead or alive and dealing with, let's say, the gang violence or the drugs and the constant, in and out of mental hospitals or whatever situation they're dealing with. And thinking about the comment that the pastor made to you, do you ever think about that? Whether there's a part of you that thinks maybe, and I know, I mean, this is difficult for me to ask you even as a father, but there ever comes a point in your life where you're like, you know, maybe that thought of him being dead is easier than living with the thought of knowing that he's going to be suffering with this for the rest of his life.
Either way, I'm still gonna suffer. I'm gonna suffer. You know, like just because the child passes away doesn't mean that you're not gonna constantly wake up in the middle of the night and thinking about that person or that child. That child is always gonna be on your mind, whether it's drugs or gang violence or what my son is going through. You know, you can never stop not thinking about him. You can't, whether they're alive or dead or whatever. You just that's your kid. That's your kid.
How do you sleep at night knowing that you have zero control at this point as a father with the decisions that are being made for your son?
Once I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't fall back asleep. You know, I'll turn the TV back on and then I'll doze off for another maybe half hour, 45 minutes. But once he gets into my head, um, that's it. I'm wide awake and I won't, more than likely, I don't go back to sleep. So I don't sleep well at night. You know, I don't.
Has it affected your professional life, your work life at all?
Surprisingly, no. Um, I'm at work. I'm pretty much by myself at work, so I have plenty of time to sit in my truck and, you know, thank God it's a high demanding job that I don't have time. But once I hit that time clock and I get in my car, he's right back in my head, you know. And before all this, I used to work 13, 14-hour days, you know. Thank God for my job. I love my job, but it really helped me keep my mind off of uh of Aiden. But once I get home or I get in the truck, it's 24 hours a day. It never it never ends, you know. It never ends. Like vacations are difficult to go on because, you know, you're always thinking about them.
I mean, it seems like you've lost faith in the system. But how about fatherhood overall? Does the thought ever cross your mind where maybe you want to get into a new relationship and become a father again, or
No. Nope. Nope.
why is that?
I don't trust anyone. I don't trust the system anymore. Um, I was once a very big supporter of, I know our system has flaws. Our justice system definitely has flaws, but you don't realize how flawed they are until you get involved in it. I mean, I never had a criminal record, never an alcoholic, never a drug addict, nothing like that. I had a flawless record before all this. And the system has completely criminalized me and criminalized the grandparents in all of this. So I don't have faith in the justice system. I don't have faith in the police department. I'll probably never date again. Um, and I don't think I could ever date again, you know, and it's, you know, put a strain on me when it comes to trying to date because you can't trust. How can you trust somebody after something has been done to you like this? You know,
Well, it's very difficult to trust after what you've gone through. But you're still a relatively young man. You have many, many years ahead of you. So
you
to
sound like my uncle.
so to allow, I don't even want to call it one experience, but to allow such a tragic experience to um, define who you are for the rest of your life, that in itself would be a loss of life in itself. No.
For some people, it might be. For me, I've gotten quite comfortable, being by myself. Not having to answer to anybody. Being able to do what I want, go where I want. Not having to be yelled at for going somewhere or wanting to go hang out with mom and dad or go hang out with my brother or the distrust. You know, um, and I'm comfortable with it. You know, I as much as I miss my son and I just enjoy being single. You know, it's a lot better. You know, a lot better. But that doesn't mean that there's not somebody out there for everybody. You know, not all women are bad. There's some great women out there. But I think either one or two experiences of getting, you know, hurt would definitely deter somebody from getting back into that type of, I guess, dating scene or that kind of stuff.
Part of being a parent is part of being a human being is accepting others around you, whether that be your own family members, your siblings, right? 'Cause we don't choose our siblings, we don't choose our parents, we choose our friends. But regardless, you still have to be accepting of who they are as they are accepting of who you are. Especially as a father, um, I always think about, am I accepting enough of my children or am I too hard on them? But is there ever a time where you think about maybe I just need to be accepting of the situation? And if I were to embrace this whole process, as harsh as that may sound, but yet that would grant you custody of your son. Is that something that you've thought about or you're open to? Um, if that was the only way you would still get to spend time with him?
I we were in negotiations. It's funny you bring that up. We were in negotiations for 7 months on visitation with Aiden, and there was three stipulations. The first one was supervised visitations. I could not talk about male stuff, and I could not talk about how Aiden was dressed. The first one was the supervised visitations. It was on me for the first month. I argued that I had done nothing to deserve supervised visitations. Um, but after a month, I agreed to it. I agreed to the not talking about male stuff, and I talked about not talking about his attire. Um, and every time that I agreed to one of their stipulations, they always continued to roadblock me. I always initiated the emails stating, okay, do I need to call the supervisors? How much is the supervisors going to cost? Is it going to be male? Is it going to be female? Minors counsel would come back at me, well, do you want a male or female supervisor? And I said, I'd prefer a male supervisor. They said, great. I said, how much is it going to cost? We'll get back to you. 7 months in that conversation, I received an email back from them saying, sorry, Adam, but we dropped the ball. on visitations. They never were going to give me visitations. They never were going to give the grandparents visitations. Never. My parents, the judge stated that if he would have known that there was grandparents involved, he would have granted visitations for the grandparents, right? He looks at minors counsel and says, minors counsel, I want this taken care of right away. We're going on almost a year later, almost 2 years later, and the minors counsel has not contacted the grandparents. My dad is the one that initiated all the conversations with minors counsel, and minors counsel always continued to roadblock the grandparents. They were never going to give me my son back, or they were never going to give the grandparents visitations.
What's the responsibility of the minors council? What's their duty? Is it to
Advocate for the child.
So how are they advocating for the
She's
child
not.
by refusing visitation rights from the grandparents?
Well, even more than that, why did she not give the Christmas gifts to him 3 years ago? I asked her numerous of times, give the grandparents time to get the Christmas gifts to Aiden. And she would always tell me Christmas gifts are not my priority right now. I said, what is your priority? I said, the grandparents haven't done nothing wrong. Allow them 2 hours with the grandson, with Aiden, to give him the Christmas gifts. Take pictures. It's Christmas time. Nothing. Then they told me, oh, we don't want you to send the gifts. If you are going to send the gifts, you need to order them off of Amazon and have them sent to the house. I said, no. I bought Christmas gifts. The uncles bought Christmas gifts. The aunts, the uncles, they all bought Christmas gifts. They're wrapped. You know what their excuse to me was? We're afraid that Mr. Vena is going to put a note in the gifts. What am I going to put a note in the gifts for? My son couldn't even read at the time. The simplest thing that these people could have done at day one was get that boy his Christmas gifts. And they couldn't even do that. They couldn't negotiate Christmas gifts, and they couldn't negotiate visitations.
It sounds like none of the decisions were based on what the law states. It was our personal decisions they made. How do they do that? How do they have the right?
Well, I didn't have $1 million to have a good attorney. That's all this is about, is money. If I would have had $1 million, I probably could have got my son a Christmas gifts. My very first video that I made on my Instagram page was me opening Christmas gifts to my son. My very first video, having to show Aiden what he got for Christmas. And that was a year and a half after they couldn't give him his Christmas gifts.
You opened that gift on a video and you sent it to him, or
No,
you just posted it?
I posted it on my Instagram. That was my very first video I ever did, because I had no other options. No one was fighting for me. Nobody was helping me. I went to Instagram for help. No father should have to open Christmas gifts, videotape it, and post it for the world to see. There were Legos, there were clothes, nothing bad in there, in any of those Christmas gifts. Hot Wheels. I mean, I don't understand minors counsel. And that's another racket in family court, is the minors counsel. I've got a lot of anger built up. I still have my emotions, as we all saw, but a lot of these emotions have turned to anger.
I mean, can anybody blame you for being angry at this point?
They sure blame me for being angry.
Because it seems like in these types of situations, fathers are being vilified. And you would think the court system would at least be the mediator, which is what their role is, to be able to find a healthy balance between.
I had nobody fighting for me. Nobody fought for me. I asked my attorney every day to fight for me. The facts and the evidence were there that I'm not the monster that these people are portraying me to be. And he still could not fight for me.
Who was he fighting for then? Your
He
own
was
attorney?
fighting everything that they were doing for Aiden. He thought was a good idea. He always would tell me, "Oh, I think the gender clinic is a great thing." No, it's not. I said, "If you think it's such a great thing, then get me a meeting with the doctor during the assessment." Why is this 4-year-old going to an adolescent youth clinic? Why is a 4-year-old going to an adolescent youth clinic? Why is the nurse, when you call over there, asking how old your son is, and when you tell him the age, she goes, "Oh, why is he here?" And I go, "I don't know. You tell me why a 4-year-old's at an adolescent youth gender clinic."
But you've had quite a bit of media coverage, though, over the last few years.
I have.
Do you think the media has portrayed you as you are, or have they also vilified you? And
Well, we both know that, we have the conservative side and we have the I don't know, the left side. The conservative side has portrayed me in the right picture. Um, the left has portrayed me to be this out of control monster that beat the crap out of his wife, beat the crap out of his son, but they don't read the court documents that specifically states that Adam Vena never laid hands on her, when in fact he always walked away.
with all the media attention that you have received, there hasn't been any type of law firm attorneys that have reached out to you, offered their services pro bono?
No, I've reached out to, before the attorney I got now, I reached out to every father's advocacy group out there to help me. And I don't think any of these attorneys want to touch this subject because it's so new and they know how much it's going to cost a law firm and they don't know how to attack it. The father that I was telling you about, he had the number one witness in the United States and they still stripped him of his
Number one witness or attorney?
number one witness.
What do you mean by
She, Marianne Grossman, testified at the Supreme Court against puberty blockers. I'm probably getting this wrong, but I know she testified at the Supreme Court against this gender affirming care stuff. And he had her as the witness in the courthouse, and he still ended up losing.
this is the Jeff Younger case?
Yes. Number one witness in the United States when it comes to this type of stuff.
And what was the deciding factor
I don't
for that particular case?
I don't know all the details, but what I do know is that they gave full custody to the mother. So it doesn't matter. I could resurrect Johnny Cochran from the grave and I could put the greatest dream team attorneys together. I could have Elon Musk money and I still don't think I would win because of the gender affirming words.
I mean, do you think schools, therapists, or even doctors are pressuring families to conform to the affirmation model without considering the full picture? Because it's hard to fathom how. I mean, I know this didn't happen overnight as far as this whole gender neutral ideology, or but it seems like everybody from the school system to the law to pediatricians, everybody's kind of come together, orchestrated this coup in a sense, where it's like, as a parent, if you reject even the slightest idea of, I think, listen, you're 4 years old, just stick to playing with your Hot Wheels or with your Barbie dolls. Don't worry about anything else. That you're considered a monster. But how is it that everybody seems to be in cahoots together? Where, from what you're explaining to me, even if you had all the money in the world, you don't think you could fight this?
I because we look at the healthcare system. You look at Big Pharma. Big Pharma's got a big role in the medications. Like you said earlier in the interview, they're going to have a lifelong patient. We've got these therapists and doctors that are telling parents, well, would you rather have a live daughter or a dead son, or would you rather have a dead son and then a live daughter? They're scaring the parents to think that if you don't go along with this, your child is going to kill themselves. So they're scaring the parents. I mean, we look at Chloe Cole. Chloe Cole's parents were scared into agreeing to go down this path.
Mm-hmm.
And they're scaring the parents, which they should not. I thought their job was to do no harm. Doctors' job is to do no harm, and they're doing harm to kids.
And that makes me think with the recent incident that took place, the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, who was assassinated in New York. And when you read some of the majority of the comments, there seems to be very little sympathy towards Brian and his family because of, from the sound of it, the decisions he made as a CEO of the largest healthcare system in the United States, where so many claims were denied and so many medical decisions that could have saved lives were denied due to increasing their bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the outcome? Now, the CEO is no longer here. The family is going to have to, live the rest of their lives without him because of the decisions that he made as a powerful man running the largest healthcare system in the country. I wonder, with everything that's happening, with so many parents having these battles, amongst especially fathers that are battling their wives or ex-wives, trying to gain custody or have medical um, medical decision authority. Um, I wonder what the long-term outcome of is going to be as far as the actions that they're going to eventually be forced to take.
Well, I don't think, no matter how we all think about that guy that got killed, um, just because we don't agree with something or because it's hurting somebody doesn't mean you can go out and off that person, because they offed him and now someone else is going to take his place, either the same or even worse. You know, um, so I don't agree with that. But we all know that our healthcare system is broken. There's no reason to go 6 months and waiting for a specialist. You know, I saw that with my father. Our healthcare system is broken. We still have the best, but I truly believe that our healthcare system is broken in many aspects. But it's better than other countries.
Definitely is better than other countries. But yeah, you're right. I agree. It is broken because it seems like the people who need it most don't have access to it.
Veterans.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah, my dad's a vet and he can't even get VA services because supposedly he makes too much money, but he's on a fixed income. And they told him that he would need to file divorce to be able to get VA services, but they're barely scraping by.
Do you think the day will come where your son will look back at this and realize what you sacrificed and what you did to try to save him? Or do you think if he is okay with all of this transition and everything that he's going through, once he's older and he realizes it, that he will just not forgive you because you didn't accept him for who he is?
I'm sure that's going to be what's going to happen. Um, but at least, I've got a file on my computer with all my videos. Um, I try to make a video, just a good morning video to him. So I've got a file sitting on my computer. And when that day comes, he can see the videos that I've made for him, And at that point, he can make his own decisions whether or not I was, a good father or a bad father, you know. But I can only imagine what these people have told him about me.
We try to be as accepting as we can, and we want our kids to explore and try different things. But the only challenge with this particular exploration is that it's permanent. Yes, you can reverse certain things, but it's still permanent for the most part, and that's what's worrying for somebody like you as a father, knowing that the decisions that his mom will guide him to make cannot be reversed once, if they give him medications or they end up doing any type of surgical procedures. At that point, it is what it is. But
That's my biggest fear. Whether I see that little boy ever again, it's difficult, but I just don't want him to go through the surgeries or the puberty blockers. Because then at that point, I've lost him for good. He's done.
do you think there will ever come a time where you would be accepting of any of this?
How can you be? He was born a boy. Now he's going to come in here dressed like a girl. I didn't have a daughter, I had a son. You can't accept it. No real father could accept that. If that makes me a bad father, then if he came to me at 18 and said this, then, maybe him and I could have a conversation, but not as young as he's at right now. He has no clue. He's been brainwashed. But I just don't want my son to be put on medications.
As a father, I sympathize with you. As a man, I sympathize with you and applaud you for fighting the fight as long as you have, because it's impossible to go through what you've gone through and to still be able to sit here, to function, to do what you need to do as a man, to go to work every morning, to play the role of a son for your parents, a brother to your brother, an uncle to your nephew and niece. It's not easy, to say the least, but you're here, you're continuing to fight. I hope one day you get to the finish line and you're granted what you deserve as a father and get what you've truly worked hard for, because nobody deserves to go through what you're going through, but especially you, because I can tell, and I'm sure our audience can tell from your emotions, from your body language, that you truly are a dedicated father, and you're trying to do everything you can to gain custody and to be there for your son. But as a final note, I'd like for you to, let our audience know one thing you want every parent listening to take away from your story.
I think I would like to let every parent know that to sit down and listen to your child, what they have to say. Um, One of the things that I look back on now that was the most greatest thing was the dinner table. You can learn so much for your children sitting at the dinner table. Turn the phones off and just sit and listen. I learned so much about my father when I was a kid. As much as I wanted to be outside playing with my friends, I look back on it now, and it was the greatest thing. I heard stories about my father. I heard stories about my mother when they were kids, and it brought us a lot closer as a family. I never felt that I had to keep secrets from my parents because I trusted my parents. And that's one thing I can tell parents is it's time to, bring back that dinner table, sit down, turn off the phones and listen to your kids and talk, whether it's about serious stuff or joking around or telling old stories from the, I guess, good old days, but sit down and listen to your kids and hold them. And don't be ashamed to tell them you love them.
Adam Vena, thank you so much for joining the chair tonight.
Thank you.
I pray God gives you strength to stay strong and fight the fight, because not only are you doing this for yourself and for Aiden, but you're doing this for all the other fathers out there who are facing similar battles. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.